I swear these guys were just recommendations to me off of Hot Mulligan a few years ago. You're telling me they're mainstream now? Welcome to Ray Rona Does Music, where today we're looking at Half Alive and their third studio album, Conditions of Being a Punk. The music from this trio falls into the familiar hold of artists such as 21 Pilots, with music that sounds as equally filled with joy as it is inherent sadness. I'd also like to note before we dive too deep in, this is a lost review. I found this just kind of sitting in my folder, in the wrong folder, in fact, so here we are with it being properly recorded now. So if I say some things that are like, hey, why is he talking about it like it just came out? That's why. But it's the filled with joy and inherently sad element that makes for great music 6 days out of the week, and their initial EP that I found back in the day with songs such as The Fall not only had those vibes, but also more than enough catchiness to keep my attention for multiple listens. I haven't had the time or admittedly immediate desire to dive into music between them and now, such as Inflorescence or Not Now Yet. So when I caught that December at the time had a new album on the way just in time for the 2023 review period, which I missed, I made it a priority. Metal and its many offshoots and subgenres are my forte, but it never hurts to check out more chill tunes, so what did I get out of this? The first thing that stuck out to me was the album's length. Nearly an hour with 18 songs packed in had me excited but wary. The last couple years have given me some disappointing outcomes from longer albums, such as Loathe in terms of similar genres, so the wariness was more than present. My first thought in the listening process as well as after the fact was that the worry was well placed, as there is more than a bit of similarity and sameness from start to finish. It mostly comes from the singer Josh Taylor and his singing style remaining in a stop and go manner at almost all times. The style is enjoyable, but seeing it come back and come back and come back over 18 tracks starts to get just a little bit tiring. Moments where you can really isolate this come in situations like the ending to Move Me, where you can really get a feel for it without a majority of the other instruments involved. Everything Machine and some other songs switch things up a good bit, but even on shuffle, I found stretches of songs feeling like one extended track rather than individual ones. The style of music, along with the stories on the album primarily consisting of different forms of love, afford for a lot of similarity, but when the bulk of a longer album retains the same elements without difference, it gets to be too much of a bad thing. Let's talk about Everything Machine specifically, as I feel it's the best example of where the band actually thrives. Half Alive thrives when they're mixing a lot of different noises in almost cloud while retaining their core pop sensibilities. The bouncy nature of the band's core game plan shines here, as well as on Summerland, while the latter track has a more somber tinge. The chorus especially showcases a sort of nostalgic and pun intended summertime energy. Summer is something everybody immediately associates with bright parties and complete happiness, but the season always rang true to me as one filled with reflection and drawn out silences, in environments like cold beaches and everything the song talks about. It's the hoodies and golden moments with just a tinge of contemplation, that not just Summer, but the band as well works best in. It's odd that I don't have an insane amount of stuff to say about this album, but before I wrap up, I will say that this album is a good show of why not every band needs to do these longer albums, which I realize is a hypocritical statement because I always say, why are these albums only 10 songs long? But that's a general statement, very similar to stuff like, man, I wish GameStop would bring back Game Boy games, but not every Game Boy game has to come into a store's stock. Does that make sense? 18 tracks from one band is not equal to 18 tracks from another, and that's not to say a band in the same situation would be bad or good by themselves. It's dependent on each band's different experience. I desire one situation, but realize the situation isn't going to come out well every time. I'm being a little bit hypocritical, but I still remain steadfast in my comments here. There's just not a lot to talk about this album, really, and I even looked at this whole album with it being now a lost album, and I was like, do I even need to put the review out? But I feel like it's just worth talking about just for the sake of Half Alive was a band that came out super strong, came out super positive, but is now struggling under the weight of too much going on. When I have a band like Half Alive, I go in expecting some good vibes and a quick, enjoyable set of tunes. So while I had excitement for a longer experience, I'm glad I had initial worries because they came true. There's a good EP or two that could have been pulled out from this and still would have made for a good full album if they just decided to divide things up and maybe drag it out a little more for the song process and the release process. There's a good amount of song. It's just a lot of the same going on, and it's a very common thing nowadays in pop and electronic music that's kind of sad. For these reasons, the newest Half Alive album, Conditions of a Punk, gets a 7.3 out of 10, and that's the review. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Tell me about your favorite long albums and your favorite short albums. Let's get a little bit of both sides. Hope you're having a good day. Hope you're staying hydrated. I'll see you next time.